Holy City Center Radio, this is episode 392, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. Happy Hump Day, everyone. I hope your week is off to a good start, and the back end of the week is even better. Whether you need plans today, tomorrow, the weekend, next month, go to holycitycenter.com/calendar, find out what is going on in town. And of course, you can get the latest news just by going to the website's main domain, holycitycenter.com. See the latest food and bev, entertainment, politics, sports, you name it. I've got it covered on the site. Be sure to check it out and share with friends and family who may not be familiar with it. All right, that's all I got today. Some selfish or some shameless self-promotion. I hope everything is going well in your world. Yes, if you could share the website or social media accounts or this podcast with people who you think may enjoy it, that'd be a big help for me, and I greatly appreciate it. Doing things like liking posts, retweeting on this, whatever platform you're listening to the show on, rating and reviewing the podcast, all that kind of stuff helps. And so if you have a moment to do any of those things at any point during your day, not just today, any day, all that stuff helps. So I really appreciate it. Got a little bit of news to get to, so let's not waste any more time. Another one of the worst kept secrets is now official. Yes, we've kind of already assumed several people that'll be running for governor, and one of the people who's long been assumed to run made it official. That's Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evett. She officially launched her campaign for governor on Monday out in Greenville. Yes, she's the current lieutenant governor. It was expected she would make this announcement, but it is now official. During this event, she emphasized that she's always had unwavering support for President Donald Trump, and she has a commitment to continue the legacy of Governor Henry McMaster. So obviously, anyone who liked McMaster, she's trying to play off of that as well, of course, and deep red South Carolina, saying that she backs President Trump and always has, which is true. Henry McMaster was actually the first governor to endorse Trump back in 2016. And, she's pretty much does everything in lockstep with McMaster. So, that is true. They've been in his corner from day one. She also outlined some of her top priorities, including she wants to eliminate the state income tax. She wants to cut wasteful spending and inefficiencies by creating South Carolina Department of Government Efficiency, aka DOGE. The whole Elon, DOGE project, cutting spending and all that. There actually already is an organization that was created. It's, like a political action committee called SC Doge that is out there. I don't know if she plans on working with that or creating her own, but in any event, she wants to do something along those lines. She also wants to reform the judicial selection process, ban so-called sanctuary counties, stop repeat offenders, in terms of criminal acts, and also wants to expand school choice for all South Carolina families. So, she, despite being the lieutenant governor for many years now, she does not have great name recognition. I'm sure people who are really into politics know who she is. And again, if, whoever is happy with how things have been going under McMaster, it'd probably be more of the same under her. So that's kind of what she highlighted, while also making sure she, threw out some MAGA things, that the base is going to like, I support Donald Trump. She throws out a Doge thing in there. She talks about judicial selection because, they're all talking about rogue activist judges and things like that. Of course, sanctuary counties or cities are a big talking point. And obviously school choice is a very important Republican talking point as well. So she hit all, she came out and played all the hits for MAGA or, just anybody who may be a little bit more conservative. So that's about it. It's way too early to know how this race is going to go. I would say at this point, she doesn't seem to have like a very good chance of getting, the nomination, let alone, I'm talking about in the primary because she's going to run against other Republicans. I just feel like she doesn't have great name recognition. And I think that will, certainly hurt, but we'll see what happens. You never know what controversies may come out about people. You never know who, whose campaign can catch fire. We've got a ways to go, but another person has thrown their hat in the ring for South Carolina governor. Speaking of, someone who recently announced that they are running for governor of South Carolina is already finding themselves in some potential trouble. That's State Senator Josh Kimbrell. He is being accused of swindling his business partner in a Spartanburg based aeronautics company out of millions of dollars. The associate who's making this accusation said that the money was used in order to boost Kimbrell's political ambition. So very strong accusations coming out. Who knows the truth, but it is um something that will play out in the courts, so we'll see who's telling the truth and what the actual story is here. So that's the accusation. Kimbrell, not personally, but his camp has aggressively disputed the allegations. They basically said the claims are politically motivated, and it's about internal company politics, time to sabotage the Spartanburg Republicans, campaign for governor. So there's, and it is interesting that this came out like a week after he announced his run. Look, that does seem kind of suspicious. Doesn't mean the accusations aren't true. They might have just thought this, hey, now's a good time because it's going to get in the news and, people are going to hear about this case we have. So, and again, this isn't just an accusation that they're throwing out there and that's that. It's actually a 16-page lawsuit that was filed last week. So this is moving forward in some fashion. Um, it was filed in Greenville County. The business partner who's making these accusations, his name is Frank George Rogers. And again, he's claiming that Kimbrell and Kimbrell's wife used a series of complex financial transactions over the course of 2.5 years to divert more than $2 million in revenues from the company he and Rogers co-owned into what he's describing as a sham company that Kimbrell created late last year. So the company that Kimbrell and Rogers owns is called Exodus Aircraft. That's the one I referenced at the top. This so-called sham company, according to Rogers, if it's a sham or not, we'll find out, is actually called Exodus Airways. So similar names, but that's the gist of the accusations. Rogers goes on to say that those funds that were diverted um, were done so through a banker named Thomas Blank Whitaker. And then that money went towards Kimbrell's personal use, as well as, to some of that money went to other corporate entities to pay for Kimbrell's personal credit cards. And Rogers also claimed to support Kimbrell's political aspirations. He also went on to say that Kimbrell pursued secretive business loans on the company's behalf without Rogers' knowledge, and at one point even alleging forging Rogers' signature on documents to certify lenders seeking attorneys. So, very serious business-related accusations, and if they're true, would be a big deal and could certainly harm his chances for governor, whatever those chances are at this point in time. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. As I said, Kimbrell himself didn't actually personally respond to any local media outlets about this, but a campaign spokesperson did come out saying that, this is an absentee business partner trying to undermine him when it's, politically convenient to do so. And again, the timing is interesting. Doesn't mean it's not true. Could have been done at this point to boost the profile of the case. But certainly something I am sure the state senator was not happy to find out about. And I'll certainly keep you updated on any developments. I'm sure by now you've heard of the so-called Alligator Alcatraz, this dumb, essentially concentration camp in Florida, where people are being detained. And it basically was all set up because of the Trump administration's big plans to go after so-called illegal immigrants and, cracking down on the worst of the worst. And then they're putting them in detention centers. And they supposedly put up this alligator Alcatraz in the Everglades of Florida because they needed more space. And reports about this, in addition to the problems we've been having with all this, scooping people off the streets, ICE out there grabbing people, disappearing them to other countries or jails in this country, and now this place in Florida. Besides the fact that even if they are criminals, there's no due process that they're being afforded, so it's already an issue. But then they're being kept in these places with no, in some cases, no contact with the outside world. They don't really know what's going on, what's happening, how long they're going to be there. It's all just very bad stuff. And South Carolina might be getting its own version of it. I mean, these are early stages, but Governor McMaster's office left that door open when this was being discussed. So, yes, there is a possibility that the Palmetto State will partner with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to build something similar to that Alligator Alcatraz to facilitate deportations of undocumented migrants. Kristi Noem, who's the Department of Homeland Security director, said over the weekend that multiple governors had already approached her office expressing interest in opening up a detention center similar to the one in Florida. Um, Again, putting aside the stuff I already mentioned, uh, who knows if this detention center comes to South Carolina, it might be in better condition. But there's been some concerns reported about that Florida facility, and state and federal lawmakers have visited this property, and there's been some reports from people who have visited, as well as some reporting from people in the media who have talked to inmates about how bad the conditions there are. Now, some federal lawmakers and state ones, for that matter, visited the facility back on July 12th, and this is when we first started hearing mixed reports about the conditions there. There's also been a joint article that was put together by the Miami Herald and the Tampa Bay Times that was published over this weekend that found some detainees held at the facility had no criminal record to speak of. So we have that issue, as I talked about. No criminal record, no due process. They're being kept at a facility with those circumstances. That's already bad enough. But then we're hearing that mosquitoes are a huge problem there. And I know there's going to be people like, oh, no, mosquitoes. But there's been like reporters and people down there who aren't detained. They're wearing in July in Florida, like fully covered arms, legs, everything, because the mosquitoes out there were so bad that they couldn't even do like live reports without getting bit a bunch. Again, I know, especially if these people are criminals, I know there's not going to be a lot of people who are going to feel bad for them about that. But again, there's reports that people in this facility don't even have a criminal record and we're just holding them there. And so the mosquitoes are one thing. There's also reports that it's just not clean. There's, excrement, around in cells and things. There's been worms found in the food that's been provided to them, and on and on and on. You can look up those reports yourself to see. It just sounds horrific. Of course, officials are pushing back, saying this isn't true and blah, blah, blah. I tend to believe journalists and the state and federal lawmakers who saw this place with their own eyes over anyone in the Trump administration. But that's neither here nor there. So that's what's going on in Florida. And yes, it could be here. As I said, McMaster's office kind of confirmed, when asked about, Kristi Noem saying other governors and states have expressed interest in opening up a detention camp like this. And McMaster's office confirmed that, yeah, we would be one of those. And some in-state politicians have already expressed interest. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, who I just mentioned is running for governor, she suggested she'd support Noem's efforts, and then even suggested the name Palmetto Pen for the facility if it were to open here. Oh, how cute! We've got these alliterations for these concentration camps we're building. Awesome stuff, everyone. And Evette's not alone, of course. Nancy Mace, who is long expected to run for governor, she's been praising this alligator Alcatraz thing and then saying South Carolina has alligators and we'd be happy to do the same. So she's expressed interest. I'm sure it's a matter of time before Alan Wilson, who's running for governor, and Josh Kimbrell make similar statements. So there's definitely some support from the Republican Party here in the state. Again, just like anything else, this is very early stages. It's just being talked about. But, with McMaster being such an early supporter of Trump, I wouldn't be surprised if they target this state to, put together one of these detention camps. And I'll certainly keep you posted as more news comes out about it. Here's hoping there isn't any news and this doesn't happen. But unfortunately, I hate to say it, I think it's a very good possibility. And that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. Got a quiet week ahead. My family is coming to town this weekend. I'm very much looking forward to that. I hope you have something exciting coming up to look forward to, or just have some time to relax. But I'll be back with you on Friday. Until then, good night and good luck.